Thank you guys so much for making the time. It's such a crazy time to be raising little ones, and such, a crazy time for postpartum in general, or even pregnancy. And I know you guys all have a lot to say about that. As you know, I gave birth about 4 months ago, and it's such an lonely and isolating time to have a kid. And I'm just really excited to foster and start a conversation, and hopefully a lot of women can take away some great learnings. This panel in particular is around navigating kind of that career and navigating the transition to back to career after having giving birth. Just we've gotten so many questions from our customers around that, and it's such a challenging one. As I think all of you guys have your own perspectives on that, whether it's business owners or in media, CEOs, et cetera, et cetera. I think everyone has their own journey. So I'd love for you guys all to kind of introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your kids, what ages and names they are, and then I think we can go into kind of like how is having kids, let's be honest, like how has it impacted us negatively and positively? Because we always sometimes talk about the positive and we're like, hey, balance everything. Everything's wonderful, but it's not. So like, let's just be real.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hillary Kerr, and I am the co-founder and chief content officer of Who What Where, and the host and creator of the podcast Second Life. And I have two little ones, Clark, who is almost 3, and Wilder, who just had her first birthday. So they are 22 months apart, and that is a whole thing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Lowe's. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of all of you ladies. Let's see. I am an actor and a host of a podcast called Katie's Crib. That's all about parenting and the mom journey. You guys might know me. I played Quinn Perkins on Scandal for a while. And I have a 3-year-old son named Albie, and I am currently 32 weeks pregnant. Yay! Pregnant pandemic. Woohoo! Yeah, that's been interesting. We can get into that.
I am Margaret Wheeler Johnson. I am the Special Projects Director at Bustle Digital Group, for the lifestyle sites, and also a features editor there. And I was the founding editor of Romper, which is our parenting site, a few years back. And I have 2 little girls who are 5 and 3. Lake is the older one. Jules is the younger one. They are 23 months apart, so I really feel that pain. And yeah, we're fine, sort of. It's fine.
Yeah, how has it been for you? I mean, given the ages and everything during this time.
For me, it's been a study in introverts versus extroverts. Because my older child is an extrovert. My older child is an introvert, and my younger child is an extrovert. And having an extrovert 3-year-old in a pandemic is a lot for her and for us. Whereas like my older one, who's an introvert, she's kind of like, this is not all bad for her. She's like, I can have friends, but I don't have to be with them. It's great. So she's like loving Zoom school. She's, it's like all the intellectual stimulation, none of the needing to be around other people, which is, great for her. But my little one is having a harder time. What about you guys?
I feel sort of, my son was supposed to start preschool, and I was so excited about that. Albie is also, I think, extroverted from what I can tell thus far. He's about to be 3 tomorrow, but he was supposed to start preschool, and in speaking to my OB and my pediatricians, they highly recommended that if I could, have him not start preschool until my baby was here, because he had never started school before. They were like, you know what, let's just keep going as we're going. What's the difference if you start school later? So he's okay. I'm losing my SHIT because he's an only child right now, and so it means I have to play with him all the time, which I hate. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Like
It's terrible.
I love working. I don't like crafts. I don't like kicking a ball around. Like I'm just not that kind of mom. I like reading books with, like, there are things I like, but he doesn't have anyone to play with. He doesn't have any siblings yet. You know, we've potted up once in, a few times a week. I allow him to see another child in our yard. And there's been some like wearing a mask in a park a couple times a week to like save me. But for the majority of the time, he wants to play with me, and it's such a nightmare. Like I'm trying to really find it in my heart that this is my alone time with him, and that there's about to be a second child. And so I'm really trying to like remind myself to be present. But that, let's be honest, that lasts for 7 minutes. And then I'm just really tired, really pregnant, and he's very, very, very physical and very active. So it's been a challenge for sure.
Hillary, how about you?
I have really been enjoying this, and that sounds like a lie, but it's not. And I think part of the reason it's been great is because it started off so terribly. And I had a moment where like my husband was quarantined in the bedroom.
Oh
the
my
baby-
God, this is the craziest shit I have heard. Like,
Yeah.
keep going.
It was a lot. And so like my husband was quarantined in our bedroom straight up for 2 weeks. The baby I basically had quarantined in her room, and I wore an N95 whenever I was with her. Clark at 3 was just like running around. But we didn't have any help. We didn't have any family. It was just me doing, and also I have a full-time job and have a company of, 150 people. And like that wasn't stopping. So having gotten through that and being lucky enough to have great health insurance, and lucky enough that they had very mild cases of it and that the baby was okay. I had to stop breastfeeding and move just to pumping. So also I was doing all of this while only pumping, which was misery.
Did they tell you only to pump to like give more distance with you and the baby, or what?
Yes. That was the exact thing. They're like, it's good because the other thing is it was assumed that I was asymptomatic and had brought it into the house. So they're like, we want you to give the antibodies to the baby, but not like directly. So pump and give her the breast milk because that's great. But so like, anyway, it was a mess. It was a straight up mess.
Wow.
So my point is that like we have great health insurance. We were lucky enough, but those 2 weeks were such a dumpster fire for us that ever since then I've been like, this is great. Like everything is okay. And like we locked down on the 13th of March, and this was literally like 13 days later. So it was very much in the beginning when no one had any information. Anyway, my point is I think like this year as a whole has been a real perspective shift, and having that experience was a real perspective shift. And, for the kids, I also feel like it's pretty easy. Like Clark's almost 3, the baby is 1, they have each other, and he doesn't know what's going on. Like, I think it would be really hard if you had like school age kids, or to your guys' point, very active kids. My kid is just a reader. So like, he just wants to sit and read. So it's kind of like, I kind of feel like other than like the horror of the beginning, I kind of feel like I've been lucky in all of this because we're not doing Zoom school, like he's just like being a kid. And sometimes we have one family that we've potted with. So,
You might be the most positive person.
Well, I've been through some health stuff with my kids. So I'm kind of like
with the lucky part, and then to hear all of that is, I think it's really your perspective that's really positive, because not everyone feel that way.
If everyone's healthy, that's like literally the only thing that matters. So, and right now, everyone's healthy.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to talk
about. I'm knocking on every piece of wood that I can find that's like in my vicinity, because you're completely right, and that is such a wake-up call. And so, oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. But again, like in a weird way, I'm glad it happened early, because like now we know. And again, that gave me some perspective shift on like, I thought it was hard when we were locked down working full time with no help with the 2 kids. And then when Jonathan got sick and it was like that was a whole nother level. I was like, oh, like this is actually hard. And by the way, we're still incredibly privileged. So like, I can't imagine like as difficult as that was for me. I'm also very aware of how massively, like we're not food insecure. Like other
you had
people have it.
space to separate from each other. Some people are living in
Yes.
one room. You have health insurance. Like it's
Yes.
like you were
Lucky.
Lucky.
Perspective shifts are massive right now. And I know that I've had a perspective shift on maternity leave policies, even just being home for the first time. I've had 3 kids in 5 years, and my first 2, babies, I went back to work, and it was kind of like, I gave myself like a shiny gold star for doing that right away and not taking maternity leave. And now, being home for 4 months plus 6 months now straight with a baby, I'm like, wow, we need to rethink our maternity leave policies as a company, because I just went through what everyone else goes through for the first time. So that's been a really major shift for us in our business. It's like actually me personally going through what everyone else goes through. You said, Hillary, that you have 150 employees. How has your perspective kind of with this, time period shifted about what you want for your employees? And
yes, I mean, but like this is my favorite topic, so you're gonna have to cut me off because I could talk about this all. Maternity leave, paternity leave, family leave is like my favorite topic of all time. So before I had kids, before my business partner had kids, I was in an email with some other founders, and someone was asking about paternity leave. They're like, what's your company's policy for paternity leave? This guy wants 6 weeks. I don't know how I feel about it. And one of the other founders, who was a woman who co-founded Food 52, that amazing site.
I love that site.
Best. So
Taking all my
you're
money.
going to love it even more after you hear what she said. So Amanda said, if we want equality in the workplace, we need equality at home. And that's why at our company, everyone gets equal time off when they have children. And it's so simple, but I was like, it made me realize like, men need this just as much as women do. And also we need as much of it as possible. So at that point, we enacted 16 weeks paid leave for everyone in our company. It doesn't matter if it's a surrogate, an adoption, if you're having the baby, if your partner's having the baby. I just kept thinking about the fact like we have a lot of team members who maybe aren't going to carry the baby themselves, or maybe it's their partner. That doesn't mean that it's any less chaotic because they're there. So, or because they're not going through it themselves. So we have it for everyone. And then plus with some additional state stuff, you can get up to 6 months off. So I think that, again, like that family leave, taking it off of relating it to the biology of it all and thinking about it as a family thing. And like, my husband did not get that time off, but by the way, like we really could have used it, and it would have been better for him to have that time to bond with both kids. I mean, he's a real co-parent and really does it 50-50, but there's just no substitute for time. And if you have time with your kids, you are going to be a better parent. You're going to be happier about going back to work when you do, if you choose to. So that's why I think it's super important that we think of it as family leave, not maternity leave, and that we make sure that we give as much as we possibly can. I wish we could do more than 6 months. That's just where we are right now with our finances, but it's something I care about tremendously and have for many years. So that's my spiel.
That's a fantastic policy. It's such a hard thing as, a fast-paced growing company, and knowing that it could impact your performance or anything like that, and doing that because it's the right thing to do. And that, as a mom yourself or a parent yourself, like why wouldn't you do that? That's amazing. That
I think you attract better talent that way also. Like I want,
like we want our team to build families just like we have.
Very much.
Also, like, let alone what if people are struggling? Do you know what I mean? Like mentally, like the mental health of the identity shift.
I had the 4-month regression sleep thing last night or last week, and it's so interesting because it's like, the first couple months it's hard, it's new, and then all of a sudden the baby wakes up at 3 or 4 months and their brain is everything's shifting, and then it's like, all right, go back to work, 9 to 5, whatever it is for most people. And it's such a precious time. So I guess, Katie, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You're obviously a podcast host, you're an actor. And I think a lot of people question, like, what is it like? Can you like elaborate a little bit of how that transition was for you the first time?
I think it's like this, whether you're an actor or whatever you are, but somewhere for me, mentally, there's stuff there culturally that if you get pregnant and have a baby, especially in the acting industry, like, you're screwed. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're no longer up for the sexy roles. You better get to work quick. You better hide it. No one's going to want to work with you again. And that's the version in Hollywood that is there, even though that was not my truth, which I will explain. But it's there. It's like, oh God, I'm in trouble. I'm going to get fired. No one wants a pregnant girl. And I think that translates probably in any field where you're scared about getting fired, or how to tell your employers, or people are going to pass over you or think that you're not capable. All of a sudden, you're not an asset anymore. I had and still have the distinct pleasure of working at a company that is run by the most powerful women in Hollywood. And so Shonda Rhimes, who created Scandal and Grey's Anatomy, is the greatest boss in the world. And actually, she was the one who was like, it's the greatest story of all time, but she and I are very good friends. And she knew that I really wanted a family, and that Scandal was going to be wrapping up. And we had a long talk about when family plan. I mean, she was basically like, Scandal's not going to last forever, and you're not going to find a better boss than me in Hollywood to do this with. I'm good at it. Like, she's taken a lot of women through this on Grey's Anatomy. Kerry Washington set the most incredible example of motherhood on Scandal. And it was amazing. And I can't believe that that's not how it is in Hollywood, but also in all places. I mean, it's like utopia. It's like there's kids playrooms at Shondaland where all the actresses' kids go to play. They built steps outside my trailer because they didn't want me to slip and fall while I was pregnant. I had a PA like designated to me that anytime I wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or to put my legs up. I mean, it was literally better than being at home by like a lot. Because I've been home this pregnancy, and I'm like, oh God, I really miss being on Scandal and being pregnant. So yes, even though I did work, also, she worked it out that I had off after I had the baby, which I've heard horror stories in Hollywood about women going back, like having a C-section and being on set the next week, and really being guilted into that. I think things are changing. I do. Like, obviously with the Me Too movement, and Hollywood is really awakening to how to treat women all around, but then also how to treat mothers. But I was really, really lucky to be pregnant and have a baby working for Shonda Rhimes and Betsy Beers. I mean, there wasn't a man to be seen. So it was like, and most of the women in Shondaland are moms. So the first time I went back to work after I had had my son, which was at the 3-month mark, Kerry Washington was directing the episode, and they were like, what's your breastfeeding schedule?
Wow.
How often do you need to go back to your trailer to feed? The baby's welcome here at all times. Your nanny's welcome here at all times. They gave me like a huge trailer. One half was mine, one half was my baby's, that we turned into a nursery. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the thing is that's so messed up is that it shouldn't be the exception, and it shouldn't be like, you want that at some point that's the norm. And it is the norm there. So I know it's possible. And we know that you can see the last season of Scandal, I did better work because I was really supported.
I mean, there's a similar, conversation, I think, as in the founder entrepreneurial circle of like, should I start a company and have a baby? And something that I know all too well, having had an investor tell me I can't do both. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to do both. So I feel like it's everywhere. And I think that you're lucky to have that kind of support. That's
The only thing I will say, though, just one more thing I want to add, is that Shonda does say, which I do agree, is that she does say you can't have it all. Like, she does make it very clear, because I don't want to sugarcoat, like, yes, it's an amazing place to work, but any day that I'm kicking ass as an actress is a day that I'm missing my son's entire life. And any day, like, I think she even was quoted, Shonda, saying, like, the day I have to get in a script is due is the day I'm not making it to my kid's piano recital. It's just, you can't, balance is not true. It's just not true. You're succeeding at one and failing at the other. So that, even if all the sudden I did have it work, it is what it is. And that's my own stuff to grapple with.
I say like having it almost, because I think any day.
Oh, that's good.
You're kind of like, any day you're failing at one or the other. But like, if you zoom out and you're like, you look at the week, you're like, did I kind of almost have it? You're like, yes, at large, yes. And I think it's so, like, putting a magnifying lens on every day is just horrible for your psyche in general. And I think that one of the things that I've learned a lot over the last 5 years is just, you can't do it yourself. And whether it's Shonda or other people, or it's just so important to have that support system. I didn't grow up with any help. I always grew up with like a mom that did everything. And so I was like, oh my God, I can't hire a nanny. Like, they're not used to this. But it's so important for running a company. It's so important for getting work done and feeling okay with that. The other side of help, I think, is also partnership and relationships. And Margaret, I don't know if you want to chat about your partnership and your relationship, and if you felt supported. And I know you also launched Romper around the same time, right? When you were.
Yes.
There, yeah.
So a few things.
Not to put on the spot.
No. One is, I've been at Bustle since we were a very small company of like 12 people or whatever. And, very early days. And so to say that I was like the first one to have a child, I was the first one who was even within like 5 years of having a child. Definitely.
Wow.
So, and I was going through like fertility hell. So I had just gotten this job in September, and then it was like fertility hell through, all while we're like trying to build this startup. And I couldn't tell anyone. And since we're a startup, I had no idea how my boss was going to feel about maternity leave, or if there was anything we could do. And to his credit, he was asked actually in an interview for an article, just like off the cuff, like, what's your maternity leave policy? And in a stroke of genius, because he didn't have time to consult anyone, he was just like, we do 12 weeks paid maternity leave. And I hadn't told anyone. And I was like, yes. And I still like owe that reporter who put him on the spot a bouquet of flowers, I think. But in any case, so then I told him soon after, and I would say that everyone already knew, because I was really anxious, so I waited a very long time to tell people, like a point where it was an open secret. But also I still feel that like everyone was kind of confused, because again, like everybody else was really far away from this in their life. And it also, like, I just felt I had a very anxious first pregnancy. I sort of felt distant from it too. So that was intense. And then I was very nervous to be on maternity leave during this period of growth for the company. Was not sure where I fit in. And like about 2 months into my maternity leave, my immediate boss, an amazing woman who is an entrepreneur herself now, named Kate Ward, called me and was like, it was about 2 months in, and she was about like, how's it going? And I was like, oh, this is where it happens. Like, where they're like, they don't need me anymore. And she was like, you know how we had talked before about how we really need a parenting site? I was just, we're talking this morning, and I was just thinking that you should run it. And she was also like, not because you have a kid now, just because we talked about it and it's the right time for the company. It's not because you don't have to do it because you have a kid. And which was a good thing because I didn't know anything. I was like the most baffled new mom. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I did that. And then also while I was on my maternity leave, I handled partnerships at the time for us. And so I went to a drinks thing for Sheryl Sandberg because I had covered her regularly. I'd been at HuffPost before. And so I don't know, I was included in this, and I was like, way to keep my foot in the door and lean in. And so I went to the thing, and I chatted with Sheryl and whatever. And I had to thank her. It happened on the same day that I was going back to work from maternity leave. And so I sent her this email, and I was like, by the way, this is my first day back. And she wrote back to me in a second. And she said, I cried the whole first week. It's going to be fine. Now, I learned soon after that I cry for the entire year after a baby is born. And now I've had 2 of them, and that's just it's how I cope. I also fall asleep in meetings. So I've been called out for falling asleep in meetings. And I'm like, yo, I got 4 hours of sleep last night. And you rolled out of bed at 7:45 and got yourself an iced coffee. So maybe you could retract that question. But about if I'm falling asleep in the meeting, but also, yes, I'm definitely falling asleep in the meeting. So I went back, and I worked with my wonderful boss, and we launched a parenting site 8 months later. And during the growth of that parenting site, I tried to learn how to become a parent. So one of my favorite things about when we launched Romper was, the letter I wrote introducing the site, I included a picture of myself covered in my 7-month-old green vomit, because she learned how to manipulation vomit. She's a very smart kid. And this was when I had to get a sleep coach, and I called the sleep coach. I was like, I think my kid's throwing up on purpose to get me to come into the room. Am I deeply cynical for thinking this? And she was like, oh no, they do it all the time.
Wow.
Babies are brilliant.
Wow.
She's like, and the reason I know she was telling the truth is because she had a whole system for this already that she taught me for, a small fortune. But anyway, so I went back to work. We launched the parenting site, and over the course, and the thing for Romper was we'll all grow up together, which is probably not very encouraging for the children who will one day grow up and go back and look back. And it's oh, great, our parents didn't know what we were doing. But parents in the 80s didn't know what they were doing. They were just more authoritative about it. We're just more honest. So I didn't have any idea. And I had the support of that boss. So sort of along the lines of what you were saying, Katie, I had a boss who actually didn't have kids herself, but was just thought I could do anything, was also extremely opposed to the idea that she would be discriminating against me in any way because I was, or tokenizing me or pigeonholing me, to the point where she was apologizing for giving me this amazing job. So I had her support. And then my partner, my wife, is a woman. And I just have to tell you, if you can marry a woman, you should really do it. If you can manage it all, you should really do it. Highly recommended. But she is this brilliant person who worked for herself, and as a result in the pandemic, is the person who doesn't have a boss to answer to. So she's done the lion's share of the childcare, and basically been forced into this stay-at-home mom position, so that I can do stuff like this. And I think the really difficult thing for people who haven't lost anyone, aren't food secure, et cetera, is that it's this weird situation. If you're not in that situation, it's still really hard. And then everybody who is not struggling for their most basic needs is still struggling, but also feels guilty for feeling like they're struggling, when in fact, just the whole thing is broken.
Aside from this crazy period of time, how did you guys set up support systems so that you could go back into the workforce, into your careers? What kind of help did you get? I feel like oftentimes that's not really spoken about. It's, people post really great photos on Instagram, but they have like 3 nannies in the background that they're not thanking, or their parents live nearby. A lot of people don't have anybody. Um, Hillary, maybe you could talk about like, how do you run this incredible company with so many employees? Like, what help do you have?
Well, going back to Sheryl Sandberg and partnership in general, I married well. So I think that's sort of where it started. And marriage is not the required part of it. I partnered well. So I chose a partner who is deeply involved in our children and our children's care. Um, really 50-50 hands on the day-to-day basis. I knew he was like that when I married him, but then I really saw it in action after I had our first one, our son. And I think that has made all the difference in the world. I look at what I came from, a very traditional conservative military background. Most of my friends from college and from growing up come from very conservative backgrounds. To say that I do not see equality in my peers' relationships is an understatement. My husband took our daughter to a doctor's appointment. The number of comments that he got from people checking him in, the nurses, the doctor themselves being like, good
Ugh,
for you stepping up. Good for you. And it's like,
I hate that.
no, he's just being a parent. He doesn't get a gold star because he's taking her to a doctor's appointment, but it's so rare. I think that's such a messed up thing. Anyway, we also have a nanny. So that's the real deal. Having a nanny is 100% the best investment that I have ever made. It takes up a tremendous amount of my salary. She is incredible. She allows me to go about my day with less guilt, not guilt-free, but less guilt. And right now, working from home, my husband and I are both working from home, and we have help. That makes all the difference in the world. Plus, we have a supportive family. Like, my dad's 75, and when I went into labor with Wilder, I called him. He and my mom live in San Diego. He drove up to stay with our son while, because I had a thing where I was like, I don't want him to wake up in the morning and it to be a stranger there with him. So, my dad at 10:30 at night got in the car and drove 2 hours so that he could be here with my son when I was in the hospital having our daughter. So I think I lucked out. I'm fortunate enough that I have a nanny. I have a really great partner, and then my family is not that far away. They're medium helpful in certain ways, but they are an option, and that makes me feel really lucky.
It's impossible to work without any form of help. There's no way that you can achieve some of the things that you guys have achieved without a supportive partner, family. People used to raise kids in large communities, not like what we're doing now, which is insane. And the support systems that we set up is really the only way that, if we're lucky enough to do that, is really the only way that we can do some of these things that all of us are doing.
Partner up well. That's key. I remember one of the biggest fights. My husband and I, we've been together for 15 years, but one of the biggest fights we ever got, and he's also an actor. I would say at the start of parenthood, which, by the way, he took maternity leave, and I never assumed he would. Like, that's how culturally ingrained it is in my head that that's not something men do, which is horrifying. He was the one that was like, "Oh, I'm going to tell my agents and everyone that I'm not even answering an email for 3 months. Like, I'm so excited to be a dad, and I'm not leaving this house." And I was like, "What?" Like, I was so confused. But I would say at the beginning of our child's life, it was even 60-40, 70-30. I was working, and he was coming to set constantly, bringing me the child to breastfeed. Like, he was in the traditional sense of the mom, which is horrible to even think, because it shouldn't. It's all, look, we're all raising these children. Like, but anyway, we got in one of the biggest fights we've ever gotten, because when I was working for so much, he would always bring our son to us, and he booked a job one summer for a month away in Virginia, and I didn't bring our child. I was like, oh no, but it's just easier for me to stay home with the baby than like upset his routine. And Adam was like, that would never happen if the roles were reversed. I would be there, your child would be there. So it's just, you know, I have someone similar to Hillary who's very involved and gets up on his soapbox, and I'm like very appreciative of him that he does, because clearly I messed up in my head, and what the norms of what I was raised with have done to my psyche that do not have to be true. I was a nanny for 10 years, so finding help was a huge deal to me. Also was very triggering. Kat, what you were sort of bringing up earlier, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so I felt very bad about not doing it on my own. And I felt very weird that our whole families live on the East Coast. We live on the West Coast. We have no family here. And I felt very strange that I was going to have to pay people to love my kid, especially because I had done it myself before I was able to just be an actor. I had been that job for a long time. And it felt weird to me, and it felt like I was failing, but there was no way around it. There was no way that I could have my career and that Adam and I could do it alone. We needed help. We tried the first 3 months. We did the first 3 months by ourselves, and then it was like, what? This is insane. And it took a lot of getting over my own guilt of just not doing this on my own, and calling my mom and being like, do you think this is bad? And my mom saying that she would have done it differently. She has said that to me. She just has said, and not to say that, look, I've also I have friends who had big jobs and had their kids and completely changed their life because they wanted to be home. And that was a big choice for them. And that's awesome. My mom was like, I don't know. I think you would be upset if you weren't acting anymore. I just think you can't do it. And I'm not moving to California to care for your child. So go give that's the other thing. Like Hillary's, I mean, it's a huge part of the money we earn, you know, in all honesty, goes towards paying people to care for our children. And that's something I didn't grow up with. But it's our reality.
Margaret, how about for you? I mean, you obviously have a partner that's stay at home. How do you kind of like navigate being an equal parent and equal contributor when you are the one also, you know, probably working the hours and all of that? Like, how do you also help out with the parenting?
I mean, the answer is it's very complicated. I also would hasten to add that my wife is a lawyer, and she's not a stay-at-home parent by choice. We have a nanny who's not here right now. We are definitely people who are grateful to have and honestly do have a lot of help at home. So my wife talks about like her fantasy of like leaving the house and like maybe coming home at 6, maybe not. She'll just going to her office and being in like an isolation chamber for a number of hours, which I get because I get to do that because I have to. But also like it's not equal right now. I mean that's the answer. It's not equal right now.
That's marriage and partnership and parenting in general, right?
Yes, exactly. It's like and sometimes I also I have a lot of guilt about how much is being put on her right now. But then I have to like remember that like I carried our children in my body and gave birth to them. So that's not nothing. and breastfed them and, you know, didn't sleep for 5 months and cried all the time. So that's not nothing. So I have to remind myself of those things, but I have also, I was triggered by the story you told, Katie, because I have definitely done like very inconsiderate, unequal things, just not realizing. Yeah. And since there's not like there's not a gender differential, I think it mostly comes from, I think a lot about like, there are people I think who are like constitutionally, existentially parents. Like my wife, I think she came out of her own mother knowing she wanted to have children. Like, she just is comfortable with kids, like has always loved kids. She's also a person who loves animals. Like, I was uncomfortable around kids when I was a child. I just wanted to be with the grown-ups. So like,
Same.
I've never been comfortable around kids. I've never trusted them. I think it's because when I was a kid, I remember listening to my parents talking and being like, these people have no idea what they're doing. I'm going to have to figure this out for myself. Like, what's going on? I'm going to have to control everything because everybody else is incompetent. Like, that kind of thing. I was like 4. And so I think I don't trust other children, including my own, because I know kids have your number from like day one. I used to have like cold sweat anxiety. Like, when is my daughter's memory going to turn on? Like, when is she going to start remembering me as her mom? And will that be a good memory or not a good memory? Will it be a memory where I was like yelling at her because I was like on Slack and email and 2 calls and like, you know, the Kim Kardashian, like 80th baby had to go up like right now, and like, is that who she's going to remember? Or is it going to be like me sweetly reading to her? Like, it's probably Kim Kardashian, but like, I like, just to be honest, she and I will talk about it in family therapy when she's 32. But like, so I'm not an existential parent person. Like, I started to feel like I could maybe be a parent around like 28 or 29. I was like, maybe I have something to give another human being. So it definitely wasn't for me like I should just not exist in the world if I cannot be a parent, which it was for my wife. It was like, my life has no when I found out I was pregnant with our first child, I remember so clearly, she texted me, "This is the best day of my life so far." And I will never forget that. You know, the joy in that. It was just so pure. I have a much more conflicted experience of parenting. Like, I know that there's like a parallel life in which I like live in France.
I have that parallel life too.
Yeah, I like live in France.
I
don't know if you knew this. I live in France.
Yeah.
And I'm a writer, and I just like have fun. I'm very stylish and professional at all times, and like and no one is dependent on me for anything.
Yeah.
And so like that's like, and I have a lot of guilt about that, because like, that's not who a mom is supposed to be in our culture. Like, a mom in our culture is still supposed to be completely self-effacing, have no needs, have no wants, definitely not be a sexual person. Like, you're just supposed to be this like this constant like giver. I remember someone, I don't know, they wanted to do something for Romper, for something. They were talking about like this section of the Prophet where it talks about like how the parents are like the quiver and the kids are the arrow. And I was like, I don't want to be a quiver. I'm an arrow. And my team was like, okay, you're an arrow, Margaret. I was like, we're running a parenting site. I'm like, that is bullshit. I'm an arrow. And so I think, like, to land the plane here, I think it's about like, for us, it's been about negotiating like that divide between like this being like her whole purpose, even though, again, my wife is like a brilliant intellectual property lawyer. Like, this is it for her. Like, my children are completely it for her. For me, like, I'm an arrow, and like, I want to be like alongside them, you know, I want to like grow up together. Like, and that's a big difference. And it means that sometimes I don't support her as a co-parent in the way that I should, because I don't stay up at night thinking about like, oh my God, should we pack the lunches a different way? Like, do I need to order those like steel things from Amazon? Yada, yada, like hours of thinking about this. And I'm like, why didn't you just go to bed? Which I feel like a man sometimes, but it's also like, I don't have that where I think about that all the time. I ruminate about other things, but not that. So like, that's where I think it happens.
Yeah, that I think that in every good relationship, there's that healthy balance, or you might think it's unhealthy, but it's very healthy. And I guess just to close us off, this is the question that I had when we started, and I think a lot of us had, which is, I think, just being honest about the positives and negatives that kids have on your careers and what you aspire to be, whether it's to be in Paris and in France, being a writer. If you guys could all just like close off and give one positive and one negative that having kids has had on your career, and that would be the best way, I think, to close this panel.
I think the positive is that I'm better at time management in a way. Like I can get done on a nap things that used to take me way longer to do. I also think it's very positive when you're an actor and your life has been incredibly egocentric your whole life. And there's this saying when you're an actor, like book a trip and you'll book a job, because it's like, if you finally don't stop thinking about like yourself and you're like going to a family vacation or something like that, you'll always book a job because it's like not about you. It's so lovely to not be the number one in my life. Really. Like like I only sell myself. You know what I mean? Like that's what I do. So my son is number one, you know, it's like, it's a relief, you know, and I didn't have him until I was 36. So 36 years of being like an incredible egocentric narcissist, which is still there, but like, you know, it's just better. So that's good. The negative, is probably something to what I think the negative stuff is big in Hollywood. I think there's a lot of body stuff that came up for me. It was really hard for me, in all honesty, like, and maybe this is a shallow thing, but you know, there's a lot of pressure in Hollywood. Like, look at how fast she got her body back. Yeah, well, that didn't happen for me because I'm a person who had a baby and it was hard. And I don't even think it ever got off, to be completely honest. It probably won't. But there's a lot of pressure in that way. And there was a lot, and I still think even translating that out of Hollywood into just being a person, I think just, I'm so pregnant. Am I ever going to be like a sexual, sexy person ever again? Like, I don't find, to me, some women get pregnant and they think they're the hottest things ever. I don't feel that. I'm over this. Like, and when you talk about going to France, I'm like, yeah, like I want to go to France like I was in my 20s where I didn't give a shit and I have like 8,000 boyfriends and I wear like no bras and like my boobs are perky. Like, that's the negative stuff that is in my brain at this moment. I'm sure there's a ton more, but I'm just going to bring the body shit up, which sucks.
I feel like that stuff never goes away.
It
and
doesn't.
I can imagine how hard that is, where you're being, you know, it's part of your profession in some ways. That's different. That's a whole other thing.
Yes.
Hillary, you're next.
Sure. So to echo Katie, I think efficiency is a huge thing. I am much more efficient with my time. I used to fritter it away on useless things. And now I'm like, nope, I got actual shit to do because I got to go home and see my kid, or I have to, whatever. I just feel like I'm much better with that. I also think I have a greater perspective on things. My son arrived 2 months early while I was on a work trip in New York and was in the hospital for 2 months before we could drive him home across the country a week after we had got him out of the hospital. So when you have spent that much time in a hospital with your child, you realize that things that seem like big deals at the office don't really matter. So things that would have really spun my Virgo brain out before, now I'm like, is this really a problem? And oftentimes the answer is no. And I don't get so worked up about it because I have a different perspective than I did before having kids. On the negative, I don't feel like at this exact moment I'm my most creative. I am still sleep deprived. I don't feel like I get a ton of time for myself. Pandemic for sure is part of that, but also just I used to have the luxury of like time to think and time to go see a band and time to read for pleasure. And those are all important things. Like I always say, you never know where a good idea will come from. And I just don't have the bandwidth or the time for it. And to be perfectly honest, like when I do get a half an hour, I want to sit by myself and watch Below Deck or Schitt's Creek. And I do not want to think about anything. And I don't want to listen to a new band. And I don't want to read a book that's actually going to turn my brain on. I just want
Yeah.
veg. And so I think that's a current negative that I'm hoping will go at some point. I mean, the baby's only 1, so it's not like we've had, I mean, I feel like by the time she's 3, I think I'll be in a different space, but that's a really long time from now. So it's kind of wild thinking about that. But I'm just trying, this whole thing, I always just think about like everything is seasons. You know, like you have the sleep deprived season, and then you start to feel like yourself again season. And I'm just not in my world's most creative season, but I feel like it'll come back around, hopefully after this election.
Yeah, they say it doesn't get easier, it gets different with as kids get older, which I have witnessed. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, when she turns 5, which is in 2 months, I'm like, everything's gonna be different. Every month feels different with the development, and it's like finding the boundaries to have the alone time so you can be creative, and shutting everyone out is so hard but so necessary.
Yeah.
Margaret, how about you?
I'll start with the downside. I think that good parenting requires an extraordinary level of organization, and everyone's talked about how like it's made you more efficient. This is not my strong suit, and so it's just been on my end chaos. My wife is very organized, thank God, but it's very hard for me to keep up. It's hard for me. And it was like hard for me when I was like 25 and single and didn't have anywhere near the responsibilities that I do now. So now it's just hard. Like I didn't solve that stuff then. And so now I'm paying for that big time. And like, that's not motherhood or my kids' fault. That's my fault. But that is the part where I think I fail the most. And I feel that failure acutely. And you know, and it bleeds over into work, and it's just chaos. But the positive, I think, and this is along the lines of what Katie was saying, is that it's not just that I'm forced to think about myself less, which is a great thing for me, the person who has a second life happening in France. But it's not just that it's like when I do think about myself, it sort of returned me to thinking about what kind of person I want to be in the world. And it sort of reminded me that like I matter, that my actions matter, that that whether or not I live with integrity matters. You know, I think I spent a lot of years like, and all of us do this to some degree in our 20s, but like just not thinking that like any of it mattered very much, you know, except to the degree that it was like fun or fed my ego, to Katie's point. But now, you know, I also grew up with a religious upbringing, but I think in a positive way. And I spent a lot of time as a kid thinking about like, because adults taught me to do this, like, who do you want to be? And like, what kind of person is a person who's contributing and a good person in the world? And I lost that for a long time. And now, because I have to like stand before my kids, I spend a lot of time thinking about like who I need to be for them and who I want to be in like daily interactions with people, and the ways in which I'm like cowardly and selfish, and like I need to like, you know, it doesn't matter if I'm that way. I still have to act differently because of the person I want to be. And so it's like sort of, I feel just like I've been returned to what matters. And I used to be really afraid of that with motherhood. I was like, I'm just going to be like stuck in a house, like doing dishes for years. And now I realize that like, it's like taken me a long time in motherhood to have a concept of home, if that makes sense. And like, I finally have that. Like, it's like kids have brought me back to a sort of like core sense that in a way that I was very distracted from for a long time by all of the like external noise. And I'm so grateful for that. And I hope I rise to the occasion.
Awesome. I know I said that was the last one, but just one line and then that's it. One line of advice for other women who are navigating careers and motherhood.
One line of advice. I mean, I feel like I could write a book, and also that I know nothing at all. I think just to be gentle with yourself. I mean, we are our own worst critics so often. And to the point that we were talking about earlier, I have a thing about having it most, like most is enough. All feels like a lot of pressure. And if you can mostly be okay, if you can mostly do your job, if you can mostly be a good parent, I actually think that's kind of a win. So I would just be gentle with yourself because, you know, it's hard. It's all really hard.
Forget about your representative or who you think you should be or how you should be feeling as much as you can. I'm saying that out loud to take my own advice. And the Virgo in me doesn't like doing it, but asking for help is really, I would have been like dead in an alley. Like, you gotta ask for help all the time, just all the time. Ask for help, even if you think you don't need it.
Mine is simple. Make your first day back from maternity leave a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Smart.
Smart.
That's genius. Thank you.
Genius.
That's an awesome way to close. Thank you guys so much. This was awesome. And I know that everyone's going to learn so much from you guys.
I learned so much from you.
Me too.
Gosh, I took some real gems, ladies.
The Virgos, man. Thank you.